The first main model is the one that we use for our regional stock assessments, and that goes by the name of multi-fan CL. And that in the business is known as a statistical catch at age model. The CPDIME model is a slightly different structure. It's a highly resolved spatial structure model. So it also attempts to model the abundance and distribution of the population, but on a much finer spatial scale, typically 1 or 2 degree squares over the entire Pacific Ocean. So there are lots of little grid cells, and we're attempting to understand how tuna distribute themselves across that grid. The main difference with this model is that it's driven by the environmental conditions. So we're able to take into account the effects of things like the El Nino and La Nina conditions, and also the longer term environmental change typically associated with climate change. The data that we use going into those models has also been expanded and improved over time. In particular, for the CPDIME model, a really significant recent improvement has been the incorporation of tagging data into the estimations associated with that model. So all of the movement patterns that we see in tagging data can now be captured within the CPDIME model and give more realistic results in terms of the overall distribution and movement of the stocks. It also helps us understand the impacts of fishing, because the proportions of the tagged fish that are caught by these fisheries provide information on the overall impacts of fisheries, and when we expand that to the overall population, we get a good idea of the overall impacts of fishing based on the proportions of the tagged fish that get recovered. Well, for the stock assessment model, one we call multi-fan CL, our principal client for that work, if you will, is the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission, because they're the ones who commission the regional assessments, and the modelling results are of keen interest right down the chain from the regional to sub-regional to national levels. The CPDIME model, on the other hand, to this point in time has been mainly a research tool, so that we can better understand the impact of environment, of climate change. I see the CPDIME model in the future perhaps being more widely used in policy settings, particularly things related to climate change.